Hey, what's going on, everybody? This one goes out to once the biggest. Let's do this. The history of the Fiat Doblo Sandstorm is a really cool story about how Fiat took a blah vehicle and turned it into a really badass desert racer. In the early 2000s, automotive culture was gripped by experimenting with blending traditional vehicles with the rugged outdoor experience. You know, look at the Pontiac Aztec.
Meet the all-new Aztec. Meet Sam and Kate. They're about to
do something dirty.
We're not lost. Told you.
next day.
Go camping.
It's your move.
Keep your fingers off my pieces.
I'm not cheating. That's not right.
Meet Aztec, quite possibly the most versatile vehicle on the planet.
Within this landscape, Fiat executed one of the most bizarre crossovers ever. The spark for the Sandstorm didn't come from South America. No, it came from Turkey. It was a show car, essentially. More exact, the 2002 Bologna Motor Show. I want to call it the Bologna Motor Show, but the Bologna, something like that. You know, in Italy, Fiat was looking for some way to drum up business for their really ugly design. You know, it's just an econo van, basically. But they needed some way to make it awesome. So they got their Turkey plant to, spruce it up a bit. You know, Fiat's marketing mandate was pretty clear. Shattered the perception that the Doblo was just your average, commuter van, utility van, blah, nothing. To do this, Fiat tasked its plant over in Turkey to build a concept that looked like it came directly from the Dakar starting lines. The resulting vehicle was a physical tour de force. While it strictly maintained the Doblo's footprint, it was jacked up on steroids. Heavily stylized for aggressive off-road duties. It featured a widened stance, huge fender flares, exposed tubular body armor, and big tires. And underneath its skin, they put out the rumors that it had a sophisticated 4x4 capabilities, but in reality it had nothing. And although automotive magazines and what was going around, they suspected and was hoping that it might pave the way for military vehicles or some really amazing 4x4 vehicles, but in reality, it was just for a show, just to drum up some business. Gotta make that money. Just a static one-off show car. An aesthetic victory, but once again lacked the mechanical teeth to actually do anything amazing. Just a show car, but a cool one. However, when images of this badass vehicle crossed the Atlantic here in Brazil, Fiat do Brasil said, yes please. And in 2003, Fiat do Brasil faced a very difficult marketing challenge. Fiat do Brasil had recently launched the Doblo, and it wasn't really, turning heads, quite honestly, because the market here was really ferociously protective of body-on-frame vehicles like, pickups. And if you wanted something more aggressive, we had the trawler, the Injeza, even the JPX was here. Even your sports utility vehicles were really established here at that time as well. To prove themselves and the inherent strengths of their newly released Doblo minivan utility vehicle, Fiat chose the ultimate proving ground, igniting a fiery ambition within the hearts of the Brasileiros. They decided they really wanted to make a vehicle that was badass, that could conquer one of the most grueling rally races that the world has. Not the Dakar, but the Brazilian Dakar. the Rally dos Circos. Correct me on that, please. It was the South American Dakar, a torturous multi-day endurance race stretching across thousands of miles of Brazil's interior, characterized by deep shifting sands, open deserts, jagged rock fields, blinding dust clouds, and deep river crossings. To turn this European static show car into a functional weapon for the 2003 event, Fiat understood completely they couldn't rely on the standard assembly line. That's just not going to cut it. They forged a highly unorthodox, multi-tiered alliance that became a gold standard for industrial and academic collaborations. Fiat partnered with Closet Racing, and they were a very highly respected motorsport operation here, led by veteran racer Kaka Closet. And he was set to oversee the logistics, the chassis assembly, basically everything, even the teams. Concurrently, Fiat turned the whole process into a massive educational process, bringing in engineering professors in 5 of Brazil's most prestigious universities. This was really an amazing marketing gimmick. Dozens of young university engineers were given direct access to factory CAD information and were set on this path. Working along with seasoned veterans of motorsports fabrication, they set out to solve immense engineering hurdles. They were sent with the immense task of taking a mundane vehicle that was made for getting groceries and make it conquer one of the most grueling races out there, modifying it to survive 100-mile-per-hour jumps, eroded ditches, and grueling 100-degree heat. The academic teams were split into different sectors, and they were working underneath immense time restraints. And this brain trust really succeeded. They completely re-engineered and made 2 functional cars for this race. 2 identical Doblo Sandstorms from scratch. To appreciate the real madness of the Doblo Sandstorm, y'all gotta understand they were nothing like the street legal primos that were out there. They were completely re-engineered, completely different beast. The only thing that they shared was the basic, aesthetic shape of the vehicle. Street going one was a sensible grocery getter, front engine, transverse engine, front wheel drive, wrong wheel drive, nothing to write home about vehicle. The street legal ones had a 1.3 or 1.6, once again, nothing to write home about. The race prototypes were awesome. They, standard tubular frames. With scrapping the unibody and going with this tubular, they made it a mid-engine, thumbs up all the way. And they took the legendary Fiat naturally aspirated 5-cylinder 2.4, and they really tuned the crap out of this 5-cylinder. Made it a little beastie, pumping out a fierce 195 horsepower. Those are some ponies. Now that it was mid-engine, it was also right-wheel drive, meaning rear-wheel drive, thumbs up all the way. And the mechanical alchemy did not stop there. And they completely overhauled the suspension, going from that mundane Doblo whatever, not even worth mentioning, suspension to badassery. They designed a custom heavy-duty independent suspension, dual long travel coilovers, this type you'll see at any rally race. Once again, badassery. And they gave it some awesome Pinellas and Hodas, really massive Baja tires in the rear. And to bring this beast to a halt, the drum brakes were scrapped, of course, giving disc brakes to it. And they were ventilated, of course. And furthermore, since standard fuel stops are non-existent in the deep nature of Brazil, fitted with a massive fuel cell. I think it was like 140 liters on top of that. And they were pretty smart. They made it occupy the lowest part of the frame for, stability reasons. And in August 2003, the 2 completed Doblos arrived at the 11th annual Rally dos Sortos instantly gathering massive crowds of bewildered spectators looking at this going, what in the world did they bring here? Like, it doesn't like fit what you would think at a rally. To the untrained eye, it looked like it was just a delivery truck, but those that knew saw what was there. They looked at those massive tires, those massive shocks, and thought, maybe we got some competition. Because, you know, the visual contrast between the normal lineup rally trucks and the Doblo was basically comical. It really was. You know, kind of an eyesore. But Fiat wasn't blinking. They were entirely serious, backing the entry with full factory logistical support. And they had top-tier talent piloting these machines. The first prototype, designated as car number 1, was driven by the head of the operation himself, Kaka Closet. And he brought invaluable experience with chassis preservation and just knowing how to do it. The guy was really seasoned. Jorge Nicoli was his expert navigator. This dude knew what he was doing. And the second prototype, car number 2, was piloted by an absolute titan of South American racing, Luis Tegesto. Freaking A, man. This guy is a multi-time Brazilian and rally champion, renowned for his aggressive precision driving style and his deep understanding of the technical Fiat platform. Roberto Tarragati was his navigator, and together these guys were intimidating. They were a wonder team, to say the least. An elite threat in any class. And as this race got underway, the Sandstorms immediately shut everybody up. Anybody that was talking smack, they weren't talking it no more. It immediately silenced them. Because they weren't slow, top-heavy novelties. They were badassery. These mid-engine prototypes were shockingly fast, agile, and just nimble. With 195 horsepower screaming from that 5-cylinder engine, these pilots used that mid-engine layout to slide around corners as if they were gods. And that long travel suspension soaked up the deep ruts like it was nothing. And when they launched into the air, they landed with remarkable stability. However, cross-country rally is a game of patrician. Because this was their very first competitive shakedown, you know, little gremlins popped up here and there. And they completed the event with highly competitive times. And this shocked the establishment. They proved without a shadow of doubt that the Doblo was badass and could conquer basically anything. The immediate campaign was an awesome success for Fiat. They immediately jumped on this, marketing out Doblo's adventure line, and they didn't stop there. This totally sent a wave and was one of the most successful vehicles here in South America for Fiat. Looking back on it, the Doblo Sandstorm was really a novelty of time when factories were willing to just throw anything they had at making a point. And thank God they did. It gave us some really cool racing. And you see these little Fiat Doblo adventure vehicles lined up here, and it's really cool to have these here. This was kind of a quick one. Tell me what you think of the Doblo Sandstorm. Give a thumbs up if you will, subscribe and be a part of this. I'd really like to have you here. And like I always say, I'll see you on the flip side. Até a próxima. Ciao, ciao.